talking about artificial intelligence. I think there is a real sense of urgency when it comes to energy transition. I think we see that today. We see that the funds that we believed we will get and the commercial aspects, we believe that we will, the regulations and the funds will be there. It's not happening at the moment, so it's taking longer than planned. There is, again, very little standardization across the community and the industry, which is really a challenge, because we definitely don't want to end up the same as in oil and gas, where everything is very unique, because that is not sustainable. And we need to accelerate digital transition. Digital is going to be a backbone to being more efficient going forward. It's going to be the backbone to really be able to scale on renewable solutions and systems. So that is the topic of today. So I think it really fits well with regards to resource management. So let's unpack it a little bit more. Are there some of you that know what Briquet is? It's an application. Those that have young children would have probably come across it. You know, you often have a bunch of Lego bits and pieces that you have inherited from different toys and games. You don't know what to do with it. So this is an application where you can actually take a picture. It sorts all of the elements within the picture. It recognizes the shapes, the sizes, and the color. And it actually provides realistic objects that you can build. Realistic in terms of size, in terms of color, in terms of the concept. It's an animal, it's a car, it's a truck. Even a little bit more complicated, like the helicopter element. And this is artificial intelligence. And this is not something that is new. But there are everyday applications where we are using artificial intelligence today in challenges like this one, where the human brain would have had a lot more trouble to actually find some of these ideas here. It's free of charge. It's really cool also for adults. So you can go ahead and use it. But recently, you have also seen a lot of beautiful pictures out there. You know, talking about generative AI for the last couple of years, I think it has really taken over the media. After that came, of course, NVIDIA, which I'm going to talk a little bit about as well. But these are extremely beautiful, realistic, quite complex and quite deep pictures. And you can try to interpret some of these. And these are generated now with free available tools out on the internet. You probably have seen a little bit about the history of artificial intelligence. And like I mentioned, it's not something new. For those that are working on exploration and seismic, for example, it's extremely common to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to analyze data. So this is something that people have been doing for a decade. But what we have seen recently over the last decade, and not really more than that, is robotics. And robots that are, okay, it's a piece of hardware, but it's fully managed by artificial intelligence. So it has started over the last couple of decades, going from simple robots that are, they do specific things, to humanoids that are actually a lot more intelligent and can today analyze what we are doing as humans, train on ourselves, and actually figure out what they need to do. So not only that we need to train them, they can actually train themselves by observing us. And these are things that are happening today. So we need to start thinking about, how do we mix the machine intelligence that we know traditionally with the human intelligence, and how can we bring our cognitive knowledge into the machine? Because this is something that's going to become normal. The proof is what's available out there commercially. You would think it's one or two humanoids that are available today. It's quite a nice group with different capabilities, different sizes, different prices. Of course, you will recognize some of them from the US that are quite known, but you will also recognize from China, have been quite strong in building humanoids recently. And you will see one in Norway, UNECE. And actually, the funny thing is that just last week, NVIDIA and UNECE have actually entered into a partnership. So things are happening. Also coming from a small area in Norway called Moss. No one really probably heard about it from here. They are building this really fantastic humanoid. And I think this is going to come in our life to be something very traditional that we will be using. How is this actually possible? And why was it not possible earlier? And I think this is probably the most important graph that we can look at in our time from a technology point of view. It actually shows the amount of calculations that you can do per dollar value. And you go back all the way from 1935, you see what kind of electronics were able to do, how many calculations. And it's actually not linear. It's actually, it's logarithmic. So it's much higher than linear. And it's not showing any sign to slow down. And the fact that infrastructure and compute power is becoming so cheap is allowing us to actually solve much harder mathematical problems. And that's how large language models that have been very much on the media are becoming a lot more accessible financially as well. So the future is already here. This is not something that's going to happen in 2050. It's actually happening today, and technology is only getting better. The cost is only getting better. So we need to be on board and on the train for that. As an analogy, the phone that you have on your pocket has 100,000 more compute power than the software piece that actually landed the first human on the moon. Just to see within 50, 60 years, actually the difference, the cost and the preparation that have gone into, creating the right software to send the first person on the moon versus your phone that is accessible pretty much to everyone today. And of course, I cannot talk about artificial intelligence without talking about ChatGPT. I'm sure the majority have tried one version or another of ChatGPT. And if you are like myself, I think your life has been hijacked by that, because most of the meetings where we are talking about technology and digital, we end up talking about ChatGPT and large language models. And now there are a variety of those models as well. And you mentioned AI, and it's a sexy technology. But if you say, I'll give you an example of Gartner. Gartner is a very known, well-known, well-recommended research organization that can support, from a financial point of view, go-to-market, technology, procurement, different processes. And they are very famous for two things. They are famous for the Magic Quadrant, which is basically a very known figure that they update on a regular basis that shows the leaders in different aspects. So leaders in data platform, leaders in mechanical drawing software, etc. And in that tool, the Magic Quadrant, they have seen by the end of 2023, when ChatGPT came up, that across all of the roles that they are serving, 4 times more search on ChatGPT that they have had on any other term on their platform. And this is an organization that is used very much by executives and leaders across the different industries. So this is really a sign that it has really gotten a lot of attention, and it's still continuing to get a lot of attention, and it's raising everything that is AI. And it's also raising the pressure for us to invest in artificial intelligence, because those that are investing now are going to take out value much faster and much better than others. And they will be on that competitive edge faster than others. And this is a quote that I like from Bill Gates. It says, in my lifetime, I have seen 2 demonstrations of technology that struck me as revolutionary. The GUI, meaning actually linking the back end of the software to a user interface, and ChatGPT. And this is a quite strong term for someone who has, Microsoft invented, the most used suite of software out there in the world. And this was in March 23, and I think a lot has happened since then. And what is special about this is that it's a lot easier to adopt. So generative AI, large language models have been a lot easier to adopt than other more other similar technologies. Yes, AI is starting to outperform us, I think, in several areas, and that is good. It's like when you are trying to hire someone, you actually want to hire someone smarter than you. Get software that is smarter than us. I think that's going to make our life easier, more productive and efficient. But I would like to just show a little bit what artificial intelligence is, because we talk a lot about it, but we don't necessarily absorb what are the different parts of it. It is a discipline. It's like if you say traditional user interface development or data engineering. artificial intelligence is also a discipline, and it's mostly known for machine learning. So that is the typical type of, that is the bigger family of algorithms, and it's based about learning from data that you already have. So you look at patterns and you learn from that. Then comes a bit more advanced type of machine learning, that's deep learning. You can look at it as different layers of training. So it's using actually neural networks to do their learning and predictions. And then generative AI, where you have ChatGPT and you have large language models, and now you have also small specific language models. That is another subset of deep learning. And the capability it has is that based on the training it has, it can actually create new data. So it can create new text, it can create new visuals, pictures, audio, videos, etc. So that is where the term generative comes from. It actually generates new content. So just to set a little bit the difference here, because one thing that is very important is that a lot of people think about generative AI because that's what they hear now, but there are key and core challenges that we have in the energy industry that we need to solve with traditional machine learning. So we shouldn't forget one through the other. So like I was referring to, there is a true sense of urgency with artificial intelligence. And this is where, at least for the private market, this is where the competitive advantage is built for the future. So what does it mean for UNECE? I think I would like to really simplify it and say it's about more productivity, meaning you provide less input, but you get more output. It could be that you use less material, but you create a stronger structure offshore, for example. It could be about spending less time operating our asset because you're automated, but you are still able to get more efficiency from your asset. You are able to get more productivity from your asset. And you're spending less effort, less humans being part of the production, but you still are efficiently operating your assets. So really think about productivity as the key aspect that artificial intelligence is going to bring. Instead of spending things doing it manually, you actually are able to solve problems and automate as much as possible. Two different examples that are very relevant in the energy sector. One where a lot of effort have been put from, at least for example, in Norwegian continental shelf about electrification. So electrifying the oil and gas platforms out there, make them produce a lot less carbon. So that is one example where you really need artificial intelligence to actually bring all of this technology out there in a way that is actually sustainable. So how do you create that design that actually fits for that asset out in the field? How do you actually produce it, do the analysis that you need to do? How do you actually manufacture it and integrate the different aspects of your technology and then install it out there? The other example is inspired from offshore wind. How can you actually optimize production from your wind farm? And the first kind of loose end to really optimizing production in the offshore wind market is how you actually design the layout for your farm. You need to know the surface under the water. You need to know, of course, the height of the water, the depth of the water. You need to know the weather, in the area. You need to know the type of installations that you might have in subsea. You need to know what kind of traffic goes around the area. You need to know what kind of wind and current goes around it. And you need to know your performance of your hardware, your basically windmills. And small, tiny changes there will make a huge difference. So if we are able to solve these challenges through AI, because we have data and we can actually learn from it, and it can actually do computations a lot faster than if you do it in a traditional way, that will save the design a lot. And it's not only about optimizing production, it's also about optimizing the cost of your hardware. Do you need 10 for this line, or do you actually need only 5 set in a certain angle and a certain height? So I think those are quite real examples from the energy sector around where technologies such as AI will be really key to creating competition. So how did we approach artificial intelligence in Aker Solutions? I mentioned it's a quite traditional company very much focused on really quality. I think we are very much known for the quality of how we execute large capital projects. A lot of verification and validation and subject matter experts involved here. We started by a decision from our leadership team saying we need to invest in artificial intelligence, and we are going to take a year to experiment with it.
Oops.
Hang on a bit. Software update.
Actually, the AI doesn't want to share the secrets.
Tricking us. But while we are trying to solve the screen, so we created what we call a center of excellence. So we thought that we need to create competency. We need to have a fund to be able to experiment with artificial intelligence. And we need to have some customers. So these are actually business users. And all of the first customers we have had, they ended up being champions for artificial intelligence in the organization. So
internal or external customers?
Internal customers, yeah. External customers are extremely keen to know what we are doing with artificial intelligence. So they have been very much listening to our progress and what we are experimenting with. And some of them have been willing to actually also co-fund some of the development that we are doing. So we have hired competency. We have started with some initial ideas. They were probably not the best ideas, but it got us going and it got us to be able to show some results to the organization. Because it's really important to get people on board. We talk a lot about culture, community building, and upskilling in the organization when it comes to digital and digital transformation. It's even more important when you have a technology that people fear is actually a black box. Because artificial intelligence is quite polarized. It's mostly those that are expert in artificial intelligence that will make the most out of it. So we need to find that actually balance of how everyone can actually be able to utilize in a safe way and in a confident way artificial intelligence going forward. So bringing the people on board is very key. Having the leadership and the vision and standing behind it is also very key. And we said we want AI everywhere. We are not going to be selective where we're going to have AI. Anywhere where we think there is value, we will utilize artificial intelligence. So start with thinking big. We want to transform the way we are executing on our capital projects. We are going to integrate AI as much as possible. Start small, because if you don't start small, you're never going to start, and scale fast. As soon as you have solutions that are working, scale them and get them utilized. So this is really the approach that has actually helped us, not only from building competency, but also getting the organization behind us to start thinking for themselves and having AI, thinking with AI in their mind. Because we can sit in the center of excellence and think that technology is going to solve a lot of problems, but we need to know what are the right problems, and we need to have the right expertise, and we need to combine those. So we need to have the domain experts with us. They are the ones who are going to know better how to integrate AI in their way of working. So again, AI everywhere for our organization. It means across all of our value chain, all the way from studies that we do on early projects to actually constructing structures and installing them, and then eventually also maintaining them. So we have used AI in a variety of ways in Aker Solutions. We have used it for traditional data science. We have used it for predictive maintenance, for example. We use it as generative AI, so generating text and summaries and all kinds of things with third-party tools available. I can mention Copilot, that you might recognize the name, but we also have decided to create our own little platform for experimentation so we can get to know the technology a bit better. We are using it to change the way we take decisions. Right now, decisions are a whole process. We want to actually give more autonomy for people to take their decisions to a certain degree. And having the right tools that gives them the right insight and gives them that insight fast has been key to really changing that decision process. Smart robotics, both when we are maintaining and inspecting assets out offshore or also inland, but also robotics in our yards. So this is our fabrication yards where we actually put together all of the, mostly steel that we put together, but also electronics and mechanical parts. And then AI agents and chatbots. These are basically also something that is very key, is using AI to actually do a whole, whole workflow of activities based on previous answers. AI platform is important, so obviously the infrastructure, but not only infrastructure, you need the right data, and you need good data because you need to train your model. So if you train it on bad data, you will get only results representing bad data. AI upskilling, I have already mentioned that, and responsible AI. And responsible AI is something that we have worked on quite early, because I think that is part of leadership, is to take responsibility over the risks that this technology is actually bringing. It comes with risks, and that we need to realize, but when we understand what these risks are and the risk levels, we are able to manage it. I think it's very useful to have an AI charter in every organization. So these are, in a way, the guard rails for how we use technology. We have decided that we will always have a human in the loop. Well, first, we are not so mature company that uses artificial intelligence, so we need to be modest and accept that we will probably make mistakes. But also because we don't believe the technology is actually ready to fully automate. So we need to have a lot of traffic on the technology before we can decide that certain processes are going to be fully automated. So always human in the loop to decide and take the final call. Responsible AI, because there are ethical issues, because there is also validation of the algorithm issues, because there is also lack of understanding of how the algorithm works. Strategic governance, that is something that is also key. We need to have control over new technology that we are integrating in the organization. So therefore, we have policies and data governance as well, and standardization and scalability, which I have mentioned also before. These are some other examples of how we are developing AI in our organization, and you can see it's very varied. It's not that you take one AI piece and then it actually solves different things. Some of it is actually very specific siloed problems that you're solving with artificial intelligence, and it goes from generating designs based on reference designs that you have worked on. For example, it could be windmill, it could be hydropower valve or something like that. So then you can actually use artificial intelligence to generate designs based on reference and parameters that you give it. All the way to, well, actually, we are harvesting so much data from the videos and the pictures and the sensor data that we get from our robotics that we are running, that it's impossible for a human to actually interpret any of it. So you have this rich data, but you are not able to actually say anything before 2 weeks have gone. So we use artificial intelligence for that. And then there is AI or generative AI that is more available to the public. And this is something that we talk about as, productivity for everyone in the organization. And I mentioned Copilot. But also, most of our key vendors of software, some of the core systems that we are using, they are also creating and adding AI capabilities in the software as we speak, especially also with generative AI because it's so available. So what we are saying is we are going to adopt as much as possible from our vendors as well and capitalize on that as early as possible. Of course, we do audit all of the AI capabilities. So we have a responsible AI advisory board that goes through everything that we do to make sure that it's fair, it's transparent, it's safe, and all of the different aspects that we need to be looking into. I talked a little bit about people, and we need to get them engaged. We need to upskill them to a certain degree, and the different levels of upskilling will be different depending on the profile and the needs for the job. And it is a leadership challenge that we need to recognize because first, you might get a technology available, but you don't actually really use it. You don't really adopt it, so you're not going to get much value out of it. And for AI, you need that strategic view. You need to think about that significant change and significant shift that you want to do in order to actually think differently. And that's why I keep saying to the group in our organization, we need to think with AI in mind. We have this magic or potential magic. What can we do with it? We need to think differently than the way we have been thinking about before. We need to be accountable. So if we are to integrate this technology, we need to be accountable and transparent about the challenges it brings. Shifting in decision-making paradigms that I have spoken about also, and this is something that needs to be integrated into our processes as well. And then there is an aspect of workforce transformation and upskilling, meaning that there will be different tools. Some tools will basically be automated, meaning that some type of activity will disappear, meaning that potentially the person doing the activity that needs to be doing something else. So there will be workforce displacement over years. And what we need to do as leaders is make sure that we are actually preparing that workforce for that change by upskilling them. So imagining with AI, how is that going to be in 10 years' time? So how do I get those people ready in 10 years' time to do something different than what they are doing today? At the end, technology is available. There are risks. We need upskilling to be able to know how we are going to integrate it. But it's always about taking risks in order to get those rewards. If we sit still, don't really adopt technology, don't experiment it, don't try it out, don't fund and invest a little bit in it, we are going to stagnate, right? And someone else is going to take that way forward before us. So we need to take risk. We need to measure that risk and make sure that we have contingency plans, and that will lead us into rewards. And that was my speech. I hope.
Thank you, Sara. I was particularly struck by and I found very interesting the path of AI integration in your company. A traditional company, if I can, a leading edge company in technology, but in analog technology, in digital technology, but actually the path of integration of AI in such a company is, I think it teaches lessons to all of us how to integrate what's the right path for AI into our own organizations, whether we are companies, whether we are the United Nations. You mentioned Copilot. We actually have Copilot as well here. But across all of the organizations of the people who are here. And I particularly found interesting your part on the AI Charter. I think this is a very important message. That path of integration of AI needs to be within boundaries, needs to follow a number of principles, and embedding those principles into your corporate culture through an AI charter, I think is very, very, very important, because AI represents a lot of risks. It's revolutionizing technology, and as you say, is a leadership challenge. And an AI charter is there to address the leadership challenges and make sure that your company and the people who are in the company address over time as those challenges emerge from the use of AI, which will continue growing. And I found that particularly interesting from that perspective on how new technologies, in particular AI, can be mastered and can be, even though it's in full development as we speak, but can be already used in across all of our daily initiatives. With that, I would like to open the floor for questions or comments. Please, Portugal, Maria Teresa, please.
So thank you, Sara, for such an enlightening and opener of minds that you brought to us. And I wonder, most of us, are part of institutions, in my case, a research institution, that harvests, as you said, a lot of data. So, and we are making this change to introduce artificial intelligence in our organization. And I'm sure this is the right way, but you also talked about the need of a workforce transformation and upskilling. So my question is, how do we do that? What are the avenues to make this change? Of course, we are trying to hire new people, which is not easy, by the way, but we need to upgrade the minds of our people that are good in what they do, but need to to address the problems in a different way?
The way we have done it was that we have gotten the PNO, so people and organization, together with us in a whole upskilling program. And it started with raising awareness, meaning when there are town halls, when we are meeting with leadership, we have AI moments. So, typically you do HSC moments, we have introduced AI moments. And now I'm getting questions pretty much every day. Can I get an AI moment that I can speak about in my team meeting or a leadership meeting? So AI moments have been very good, and this could be internal examples from the organization. It could be something you have learned about on the media, some new algorithm or new solutions using artificial intelligence, or if you have been also listening to the news in technology, DeepSeek coming from China and the challenges with that, but also extremely cheap, and a question mark around that. So those are things that we actually bring to the table in the different meetings, and it's really creating awareness. Another tool that we have actually found extremely useful to get people to think with AI in mind is actually giving them Copilot and training them on Copilot. Because Copilot is very intuitive. At the start, you think, okay, now I need to go and open up Copilot and think how I'm going to use it. You use it 2 weeks, and then you just know how you're going to use it. You actually don't think to go to Copilot. You are there and you do your thing in Copilot. And we found that was an extremely efficient upskilling tool. We have had regular, this is again about repetition, regular Q&A sessions and regular demos that we do. And we have seen hundreds of people attending these demos on a regular basis. So the interest is very much there. And I think people talk to their neighbors, and then everyone actually joins at the end of the day. So generative AI has been extremely available. I think thinking with traditional machine learning, that has been taken a little bit longer time, to be honest. But again, it's by us showcasing some of these traditional problems to solve that people are going to get more inspiration. So we see that pipeline come in, but it's a little bit slower than generative AI, because generative AI, again, is very intuitive. So it's a journey.
Thank you. I love the AI moments. We used to have the aha moments, and now we have the AI moments, which I love that expression. We should have, Charlotte, we should have AI moments in our team. All right. The gentleman there, please.
Okay. Hi. Yeah, it was a very interesting presentation. Give a lot to think about. But given your involvement with energy solutions, maybe you can answer a question that I'm always pondering on, because we're being told that every time, like we do a Google search, it's consuming so much energy. And do you have any comparable graph to the one of the dollar increase in terms of the energy consumption?
I wish I have. I think it's a real dilemma that's being discussed now. And I know they have had in Davos, they have had a whole workshop around it. And I know there is a white paper that's out there where they have been analyzing, the efficiency gain from AI versus what it costs to actually train that model. I don't have a really clear answer. It needs to be positive at the end of the day at some point, right? Otherwise, we are not sustainable. But it is a dilemma that we need to think about. So let's not try to solve everything with AI. We solve the right problems with AI, and then traditional software development with for the rest of the problems.
If the moderator can complement the speaker's response, because this is a subject that I actually I discussed at the French Senate last week, because it's very big on everybody's agenda. And just to put things in perspective around energy for AI, so AI, it is the fastest growing utilization data centers for electricity, but in terms of absolute number, it's nothing compared to HVAC or the electrification of transport. So you need, number one, you need to put that into perspective. Secondly, it is true that the growth of data centers in the Western world is what actually has increased, has been, 1% the electricity consumption in the Western world, which has been stagnant for the last 15 years. But we're still talking about a relatively Important, but less important than other drivers when it comes to electricity consumption. And secondly, is about the technology, because the ChatGPT query uses about 10 times the Google energy when you use ChatGPT. However, you've heard about DeepSeek and the need for 60% less, 6 times less energy for training the model. So the real question is not about training models and the energy that gets into it, because I think with the new technologies that is coming, particularly with the chain of thoughts models and as well as some of the new LLMs, technology, that energy is actually much lower than it used to be, which was the big issue in the past. Is the queries, which I think you are absolutely right. Let's use AI like any technology. Let's use those technologies for the right purposes. Then, of course, it's a lot. It's so easy to use AI and just use it for everything, but it's very hard to constrain that. So I think that it won't come from changing human behavior, because we're all lazy and we all use the technologies which are easier. It will have to come from using AI and finding the right energy solutions to feed the AI, which is what some of the major companies out there have already started looking at it because of this particular issue. United Kingdom, Sylvie, please. Oh, Simon, sorry.
Thanks very much indeed for the very interesting presentation. You commented that your technologies produce so much data now that you find it difficult to interpret, and that you therefore use AI to help you interpret it. But I wonder whether there are some illusions of understanding or illusions of objectivity, illusions of exploratory breadth, illusions of explanatory depth that might make it quite difficult to rely solely on AI interpretation of the kinds of data that you collect. But I wonder whether you see the more practicable use as lying in hypothesis generation rather than definitive findings. Thank you.
If I mention, for example, the case of robotics, and if we imagine that we have drones going out to a platform, because right now we are actually the first ones able to remotely operate drones from onshore to offshore location in Aker solutions. So we actually gotten a permit that doesn't exist, but we got a permit to do that. We are able to acquire so much data, let's say thermal data, and recognizing temperature from thermal data is actually a very known problem with a very known solution using machine learning. So that is, for example, a no-brainer case where we should just adopt the technology. Another case is, for example, recognizing objects that should not be there on the platform for safety reasons. Or, it could be a piece of equipment that is lying there that someone can trip on it, or it could be a person that has fallen on the ground that needs attention. And recognizing these patterns in images is also quite common. At the end of the day, we are still having human in the loop to validate that the results are real. But instead of actually having 10 people waiting for 10 days to interpret that data, they are actually able to do it in real time. So you can get notifications, and then they can say, okay, is this real, or is this a problem? So we are targeting the easy issues. I think that is the way for us to actually mature also in our thinking, rather than going directly for a difficult problem.
Radia, please.
Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. Maybe just to follow up on the just transition, the session that we had, and my question always fascinated by the IA and how basically this can help to address the just energy transition. From your perspective, do you think that with the IA we can basically address the left behind? How we would be not increase the gap in terms of access, but mostly help to address it in a way. As I give an example, for example, in the Eastern Africa, you may find women having mobiles where they have their banking and all of that without having electricity, for example. And this was also something that fascinated me, how they have access to something they may not have in my country, for example. The other aspect also maybe the cross-sectorial coordination, the extent of which that we can, since it's not a human made, but at the same time we less communicate in the sense that how between sectors, how you see that IA and the way that you work in your field, that this helps to address the cross-sectoral coordination and communication. Thank you.
I think that's a really good question, because I think one of the challenges that we have to why energy transition is actually happening a lot slower than what we thought is because of the cost of it. And why the cost is high is because we are still traditionally using the standards from oil and gas. And oil and gas is a completely different market than what we see today in Europe and in Asia and the rest of the world. So there is a lot of efficiency that we can gain with artificial intelligence, for example, around procurement. If we are able to predict better the procurement aspects that we need across different projects, across different regions, we will be able to actually reduce the cost of procurement. We will be able to reduce logistics, which also means transportation, right? And we will be able to have, obviously, a lower cost of material directly from the vendor. So these kind of things in terms of prediction and planning and scheduling and planning your activities and your procurement are things that we are looking at the moment with artificial intelligence, because there are problems that we can solve with that. There are ways to reduce the risk, and reducing risks it also means that we can actually reduce the price we provide to our customers. So then, it's a positive catch-22. If we can actually do it better, our customers will say, yes, let's do these projects, rather than say, well, I have to wait until there is better regulations around it. In terms of collaboration, I think collaboration is not necessarily with artificial intelligence. I think it's with traditional processes and traditional software integration. So there is a lot of collaboration process that we can actually solve with the way we work, facilitated with certain tools. Yes, some of it might be AI, but I don't think AI specifically will solve the collaboration part.
Any further questions or comments? Canada, please. Hendrik.
Yes, thank you for a very interesting presentation. I appreciate all of the slides you gave in terms of how you set things up. I was wondering how you're measuring benefits. How are you seeing the results of your efforts, and how are you determining, are they good or bad?
Yes, sir. Thank you. That is a very relevant question, not only for AI, for general digital transformation. And some companies have actually gone away from trying to measure. They have a gut feel, and they say, for me to be productive, I need to do this. Otherwise, I'm going to stagnate and I'm going to stay where I am. This is also, if you are familiar with Aker BP, this is one of their key aspect in their strategy, is that they are going to be the cheapest in the world because they're going to have the best digital backbone to run all of their operations. They are really working towards that. And this is, when you are at that level, you're actually not thinking about value. In my organization, we are not at that level, so we are thinking about value all the time. In some cases, we are able to have an impression of value based on surveys. Then obviously you depend on the person being transparent and understanding the value and really separating concerns from this tool versus another. But we are also, part of the business case is, investing in creating this AI tool or creating this integration across the segments. We will be able to reduce the amount of activities from 5 to 2. And then therefore, based on experience, it will be half time spent. So it has never been very precise science ever, and it's not because of AI or because of other technology. It's extremely hard to actually track to the second, how much time you are saving or price you're saving. And actually doing that is extremely costly. If you want to track value extremely precise, it's very costly. We tried to do that, and we had full-time people doing it. At the end of the day, we thought that was actually not necessary. So I think it's also trying different methods, I would say. Yeah.
Any further questions? Yes, please.
Mark Simoni from the Geological Survey of Norway. We are dealing with a lot of information on geographical maps, resources, and in Europe have a lot of different countries that need to harmonize and standardize information. How do you see this challenge of standardization and harmonization that we are historically dealing with in the context of AI?
I think data standardization is key regardless of artificial intelligence. But of course, the easier it is to interpret the data because you already know in what format and what unit it comes in, the easier and the faster you are going to be able to integrate your data and put it into your artificial intelligence. I think the main challenge on data from an AI perspective is the governance. Because AI is using so much data, you actually need to have very good control over it. You need to know where it's coming from. You need to know how old is that data. Is it still fresh and green, or is it actually old? Do you have the right of use? Are these documents that you're supposed to actually be using in this context for this study? Or is it actually sensitive data that should not be mixed up in the context of the project? So data governance is another aspect that AI struggles with at the moment. So that's part of responsible AI, that we know that the data we are using is actually okay to use and train with. Data standardization is really key, and we have been working a lot with DNV in Norway to progress on the SHIFOS standard, which is oil and gas, which is today used in other industries as well, or other energy markets. And it's about building that standardization across the industry. And we are not there yet. And this is something that we are trying to get other partners and customers on board, because we need the data platform in a much better way than what it is today. It takes us a lot of time to scale digital because we don't have the data in order. That's really a starting point of failure.
That's a great pitch for UNFC. Is anybody, sorry, you don't know what UNFC is? It's the United Nations Framework Classification. It's a standardized, it's a tool to compare, to classify resources, which helps to address the issue that you just raised. Is anybody else who wants, yes, please.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I relate a lot. I come from the same industry on a large organization, I would say similar traditional type of classification, if you want. In our experience of bringing in and advancing AI, we noticed that the workforce, the young people that join with highly skilled in these topics, struggle to work with the knowledge, to cope with the knowledge that the industry requires for finding solutions that are efficient and in what we do. So is Aker somehow training and bridging this gap between the new workforce and what is required from them, or you're engaging, for instance, with education to form these people from the beginning?
I think there is definitely opportunity there to actually use artificial intelligence to improve onboarding of people joining the organization, whether they are fresh out of university or new to the company and the organization and the market. That is one, but it's also about capturing knowledge of people that are leaving the industry. And that's going to hit us very much over the next years. And we have started building, and I think many organizations are doing that, are building some sort of atlas for all of the knowledge that they have there in the organization. And some people take it to the level, or some organizations take it to the level where they actually also include emails of employees leaving the company as source of knowledge and insights. And then they put all of that together, and then large language models can actually interpret texts. So there you go. You can actually have a lot of data that is available on a click of a mouse. Or maybe soon we will be just talking to the PC, right? So I think that will work both ways. New people coming in, people leaving, capture their knowledge. Yeah.
I think you raise a very important point here. All the knowledge that is not codified, that is not documented, and is within people's experience that they used to win processes and making sure that things work when they leave, and that is not captured in a formal document or et cetera, that's not accessible to the AI, and then you turn around the process and you ask AI to do the same process without that. The lack of that wealth of knowledge is a serious issue. I think you raise a very, very important point for any organization. Any further questions? Yes, please.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I have a question about, because you mentioned using AI for procurement in your company and for sustainable resources management. One of the issues is, how sustainable is the value chain? So for us, in resource management, this is one of the key aspects, no? And people are talking about, blockchain and all these things. See the source of things, how sustainable is the sourcing of things. So how do you see the future on that with AI?
You're thinking procurement specifically?
Yeah.
Well, this is something that we have been thinking a lot about in Aker Solutions, because actually the biggest part of our cost is on procurement. Because we are a system integrator, means that we do have some of our own technology, but we are also integrating a lot of other technology and materials into the delivery at the end of the day. So we have a huge work stream at the moment looking at how we can optimize procurement across the different capital projects that we run, across different customers and across different locations. Because the way we do it is we want to reduce the risk so much and we want to reach our timeline perfectly that we actually overdo it. So instead of buying this bolt, you buy a pack of 100 because it comes in a pack of 100. And then you are not actually optimizing across projects and locations. So we are trying to change that. And we believe that's going to be a huge, actually, if we can manage it logistically a lot better than what we are doing today. Yeah. I mean, it's a big gap between IKEA style procurement and what we are doing in Aker Solutions.
Sorry, I was going to add for sustainability reporting, looking at scope 3, for instance, is quite a big aspect for companies, no? So having AI helping, to see where this is being sourced from, is it sustainable or not? It could be a great help, no, for all the companies executing these projects.
We have, I think, one more question. Anybody out there? Then I have a question for you. Is I see, that it's very interesting that we're moving on now from AI use to, machine learning and using AI for data management and looking and elaborating on the complexity of reality into embedding AI into robotics, where the robotics will change that reality. And so you're having a technology that is making a quantum leap from just looking and giving you advice on what's best to do, given everything that they know from the past and what they see now, to something that actually makes decisions. How are you going to address that in your company going forward, particularly when you're looking at using in deep sea exploration and operations which have high safety requirements, etc.?
Maybe two aspects to that. One is a clear validation process. When you are ready to, deploy any tool, be it AI or non-AI, that you have the right validation and that your customer actually is comfortable with that. I think that is key. Human in the loop is still going to be there. And thirdly, we haven't really, we are staying out of high-risk activities. And it's an easy way to look at it. If you look at the EU AI Act, it's like a pyramid, and it starts with, the critical infrastructure. You need extreme guardrails for that in order for you to be allowed to automate certain decisions around that. And then it goes all the way down to a chatbot where you are asking about, okay, tell me the weather for today. So there are different categories, and as long as you are at the lower aspect of the pyramid, which I think is really good enough for us because there is so much opportunities there, that's what we should target at the moment, also looking at our maturity level. that we are fine there. I think it gets harder as you go up in the pyramid. And some companies are up there, so they need to have a lot of guardrails and frameworks around it.
I'm glad that you mentioned the EU AI Act, which I invite everybody to read. It's a first attempt to regulate AI technologies, and I think it's a very good start. And it shows as well what are the challenges out there. And I think all of us as practitioners here in this room, we should be reading about that and learning from it. Sara, I thank you very much for this excellent, not only presentation, but discussion and insight into AI, the path that your company took and the challenges that you're facing. I thank you very much. And please join me in saying thank you to Sara. And we're back here at 3, so in 12 minutes for a very interesting mixed, not mixed martial arts. It's a mixed session between the group of experts on resource management and the group of experts on gas, on geological hydrogen, right? Great. See you here in 12 minutes.